Here are the 7 main items that we cover in our tax kickoff meeting, which is coming from the book Traction by Gino Wickman. And for all of my kickoff meetings, I like to make it engaging. I like to make it interactive. I like to play games with all my associates. So instead of me lecturing all day and expecting them to remember everything I'm saying, I have these group activities, I have these engaging ways of playing games to make sure that they understand exactly what I'm trying to convey. So by making it engaging and easy to understand, you actually are paving the way of what is going to be a successful tax season. I'll also provide a PDF that's an easy to follow guide on exactly all these things I just mentioned, the 7 items that we're going to go over, but also examples of activities that you could also do with your team. So for the kickoff meeting, I like to have structure of how I want each topic to go. So usually the way it would be for every single topic that we discuss is that I present it first, so I give the very broad overview of what is it that we're talking about, and then we go through games and exercises, and then the last part is what's the last memorable exercise that I want them to have, and usually it's a presentation of how they could relate it to their life. So for the first one, we talk about core values, and what I'll do is I'll present the core values that we have for our team. So you got to make sure that you already have core values in place. If you don't have any core values in place, I highly suggest you go do some YouTube search on Gino Wickman Traction and core values, because he explains how core value is really important for your firm to have. So if you don't have that, then I suggest you watch that video first, get your core values set up, then come back to this video. But if you do have that, then what you want to do is do a presentation of going over the core values again. It might sound repetitive because you've probably done it already, but remember, you want to set up the foundation for tax season. So go over the core values again in detail. You also want to explain why it's important. You can't just read off the core value and expect them to get it and it resonates with them, right? Sometimes you just got to give a reason why it's important. Usually after I do my presentation, we'll play a little game. So for core values, one of the games that we did was fill in the blanks. So I'll have on the screen the core value and a couple words we blanked out, and they're supposed to just fill in the blanks. And you can make it fun and engaging by having point system, offer prizes, put it in teams, be creative of how you want to do it, but you want to make sure that you have some kind of game that's a little challenging and that they're going to have to try to solve to, win the game. Another exercise I like to do with core value is that we'll just have one core value up, and then we'll take a group vote to see who represents that core value the best, and we'll go through every single core value. It's just a fun way just to get everyone engaged. We're voting, and then also anyone that really represents a core value, they get that recognition, so it feels great for them as well. And the last activity I always do with core value is that we have each person describe a core value that they feel that resonates with them the most, and not only say what the core value is, but also give a story behind it. What did they experience? Anything that makes them feel like that's the core value that they could relate to the most. It just allows other people to hear other people's stories. So it's a really great team bonding, team building exercise as well. Now, the next thing we're gonna talk about is vision. Vision is super important because it lays out what the firm should be looking like in a certain period of time. So there's actually 4 different visions. There's the 10-year vision, there's a 3-year vision, a 1-year vision, and a quarterly vision. So this will be end of tax season vision. And as a firm owner or as a manager, you want to lay out what is the vision of the firm. You want to make it clear so everyone knows what they're striving towards. So we do the 10-year very broad vision, and then when we work on the 3-year, we make sure that our 3-year vision is going to lead to the 10-year vision, right? And then when we do the 1-year vision, we want to make sure that leads to the 3-year vision or 3-year goal. And then whatever happens after tax season, we want to make sure that that leads to the 1-year goal as well. So for this activity, it's usually a group activity, or you could spread it out into individuals so you could see who has the best clarity of the vision, but draw it out. Actually have a big white piece of paper, like butcher paper, that they could just draw out how a 10-year vision looks like, what a 3-year vision looks like, what a 1-year vision looks like, and what the end of tax season vision or goal looks like. So you want to make sure that every vision that they have, it leads to the one on top of it, the bigger vision that eventually leads to the 10-year vision. Or another activity you could do is like a vision board. So they would have newspaper cutout or magazine cutouts or even printed out materials, and they would just make their own vision board for each one, the 10, the 3 to 1, and the end of tax season vision. The next thing we talk about is accountability chart. This is super important because it lays out the roles of each individual person on the team. And by laying out what they're responsible for, it ensures that they know exactly what is it that they are there to do, what is it that they need to accomplish, and that things don't fall through the cracks, because every single person should have something that they're accountable for that moves the client forward, that moves the project forward. So ask yourself, what is this person accountable for? What is this person responsible for, right? And this other person, what is he or she responsible for? So you as a firm owner or the manager, you're supposed to lay out everyone. It's like an org chart, an organizational chart. So you have someone's name here, and then everything below is what they're responsible for. And then you have another person here, what is it that they're responsible for? And the exercise I like to do here, and it really challenges everyone, is to come up with a scenario. So you'll have a bunch of different scenarios, and you want to make sure, okay, in this scenario, who's responsible for what? So if a client is complaining that they're not receiving their tax return, why is it taking so long? Who's responsible for handling that complaint? Or if a potential new client walks into the door, who's responsible for greeting that person, and who's responsible for talking to that person to ensure that, hey, can you sign them up as a new client? And also, I like to do quizzes as well. So one quiz would be we'll just have a person's name up, and then we should all be able to know what is that person accountable for and list every single one out. And you just go through the whole organizational chart for that. The next one is processes. Very important that we have a good streamlined process inside our firm. So what I'll do is I'll do the first presentation of the process of what to expect during tax season. So say client sends in their documents, someone's gonna have to make sure all the documents in there. It goes to this other person to prepare the tax return or do the data entry, and then it goes to a reviewer, then it goes to finalizing. Whatever your process is, making sure that you present out the process in a systematic order where it's easy to understand. So maybe like a timeline where it shows start to finish. We want to make sure that we're constantly practicing the processes over and over again. So we'll spend a good amount of time just doing this processes like 2 or 3 times, just to make sure we all understand how the flow should look. And if there are any hiccups or any speed bumps that are along the way, it's a great time to actually fix it. So for processes, we want to make sure that we're constantly practicing it, and practicing it. That's all we want to do. This is the best time to actually see what everyone is doing, how they do it, and actually making sure that it actually is flowing through the whole organization properly to get it to the finish line. The next thing is scorecard. And this kind of works with the accountability chart. So what I do is I take the accountability chart and we look at what is it that they're accountable for and how can we apply a scorecard to it or a goal to it. And we want to make sure the scorecard is quantifiable, which means that you could put a number to it and a date to it, meaning like a due date. So what you want to look at is if someone is doing data entry, how many tax returns do you want them to finish by the end of the week? That's the easiest thing. So, if there's a data entry, I'll be like, I want you to finish 20 clients by the end of the week, and we're gonna track it as well. And we have to make sure we are tracking all these scorecards because we wanna make sure that we are actively setting up the weekly scorecards and the amount that we are expecting them to reach. And we gotta see, are we really reaching it at the end of every week? It's a little tedious, but definitely it will measure how much progress you're making, which will actually help move your firm further because now you know what the hiccups are and what we are actually excelling at. And an exercise for the scorecard is once you as an owner or a manager, you will put a number up there that you think is realistic for each person. And then you're gonna talk to each person. Everyone's gonna say if they agree with that number or not. And if they don't agree, they think they could do more, or they feel like they could only do less, then you could change the numbers accordingly onto the accountability chart with their scorecard. And the next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna ask them, how are we going to get to that number? What is it that they could do every day that will get them to that scorecard number? And whatever they come up with, they're gonna present it to the whole team because this is what's gonna make them accountable. This is what's gonna say, okay, hey, I'm telling everyone on this team what I'm gonna try to reach, And I want everyone on this team to know that I'm actually serious about trying to reach it. And the next one is going to be issues. We need a system that we could come up with issues somehow and present issues to the whole team if something is wrong with maybe the process, the system, or something that is just going haywire. So with the presentation that I would do when it comes to issues is that we need to be able to set a structure where we could identify an issue, we could prioritize it, see, okay, how important is it? Is it not that important or is it very important? And we need to figure out how to solve it. So with these issues, I want to be able to present it in a way where we have a structure, we have a system to bring out these issues and talk about these issues. So the first one is identifying the issues. Do we have a way to identify issues easily? For me, I actually had a Google form where everyone has the same link and we just write out the issue. So if something comes up, we can just write in a Google form real quick. It gets sent to the owners, the firm owners or managers' email, and then we could tackle it on a certain day of time during a meeting or something. But at least the issue is out there and it's known, and then we know we could tackle it sooner or later. The second thing is prioritizing. This is when we have to figure out how important are these issues? Is it something that we need to fix now, or is it something we could fix after tax season? And the next thing is how we're going to solve it. Like once we know the issues, we prioritized it. So we say there's something super important. What is it that we are going to do to solve that issue right now? So after you lay out the presentation of how issues should be addressed, now what you're going to do is have the whole firm or everyone on the team write out an issue that they've experienced. And what you're going to do is have all these issues on like a card or post-it notes, and you're gonna put it all on the wall, right? And then once all the issues are on the wall, we're gonna figure out, okay, how do we prioritize it? So we start looking at the issues and you start prioritizing what's most urgent versus least urgent. And in this kickoff meeting, what you'll do is once you prioritize it, you're gonna try to solve maybe the first one or two. This is the most urgent. What is it that we could solve now? So at least you get to solve one issue for that day. And the last topic we're gonna have in our kickoff meeting is about regular meetings. And this is where I do the presentation setting up that we're gonna have regular meetings throughout tax season, no matter how busy we are. And the presentation is gonna be saying that, we understand that tax season is really busy. We're gonna be so busy with client work, but we need to understand how important these regular meetings are. So we're gonna have daily meetings and we're gonna have weekly meetings. In the daily meetings, this is when we talk about what we accomplished yesterday, what we're gonna finish today, and if there's anything super urgent that needs answering right now, then you could bring it up in the daily meeting. And we're gonna have weekly meetings where it might be a little longer, maybe half an hour to an hour, and this is where we actually bring up important questions that clients might have that wasn't super urgent. It could wait till the weekly meeting, and we have everyone's input for that question. So if something complicated, like a complex tax situation that happens with the client, then we could talk about it in these weekly meetings. We could catch up. We could go through any of the issues. Like if there's an issues list, we could go through the issues in the weekly meeting as well. The most important part for the weekly meeting is that we get everyone's input. That's why we have these weekly meetings. It's important to understand what every person is kind of going through during tax season, what issues that they're facing, and as a team, what can we do to resolve it or to solve that issue? And also in the weekly meeting is when we go through our scorecard. Did we reach the numbers we need to reach for each individual person? And the exercise that we're gonna do for the regular meetings exercise is having everyone determine what's the best time to do the daily meeting. Is it the morning, or is it in the afternoon, or is it after lunch, before lunch, right? It's setting up, having everyone's agreement, when is that daily meeting going to happen? And then for the weekly meeting, when is that weekly meeting going to happen? Is it going to happen every Friday in the morning or every Friday in the evening? Whatever you guys choose, but you got to make sure that everyone's on board with the same day and time for each of these meetings. So that's the exercise I would do for these regular meetings. So I created a PDF guide that you have access to. You can find it in the link in the description. And this is just a step-by-step guide of how I run my kickoff meeting. What is it that I go through in terms of presentation, exercises that we could do. And this gives you a general idea of what you could utilize for your own firm as well.